She got the impression this section of the consulate was not for violent criminals. Maurra passed one empty holding area, then another, before she reached the one containing Safin. It looked less like a cell and more like someone had crudely dug a portion out of the rock. Pulse poles were embedded on either side of the wide doorway. Eyeing the shimmering force field, she knew she could take it down with barely a blink of an eye. Safin was sitting on a narrow ledge that apparently served as both bed and chair. His head was down, and he looked asleep. Maurra stepped closer to the cell. Her movements alerted him, and he glanced up. Maurra! He was immediately on his feet, a look of astonishment and relief on his craggy features. You are well? She gave a half shrug, when what she really wanted to do was throw her arms around him and tumble to the floor. But there could be vid cameras in here too, and she didn't want to take the chance. They were in bad enough trouble as it was. I'm as well as can be expected, she answered softly. Thank you for saving me. I owe you big time. The huge Ellinod shook his head. Don't thank me. It was you who made our escape possible. His eyes raked over her, examining her for any signs of injury or illness. He stopped when he reached her forehead. Any pain? Maurra shook her head. I'm fine. Once they got the translation device out of my back, my psionic powers were able to reassert themselves. Another day or two of rest and I'll be almost as good as new. She grinned as she crossed her arms over her chest. The desire to negate the force field was becoming an itch she could barely restrain from scratching. A quick study of the interior of the cell, the pulse poles, and the corridor did not reflect any type of monitoring device that she was familiar with, but it would be safer to assume there would be some sort of equipment to help the Ellinod keep an eye on their prisoners. Lowering her voice, Maurra whispered, Are we being observed? Yes. She sighed loudly. Because there was nothing to sit on other than the floor, that's where Maurra sat. She drew her knees up under her chin and clasped her arms around her legs. Tell me what happened, Safin. What happened after I blasted the Kronners? He sat on the floor directly in front of her and crossed his legs. Barely 2 feet of space separated them, but the hissing, sparkling force field lay directly between them, making itself known every few seconds before settling into temporary transparency. You realize that everything we say can and will be used by the law-keepers against us, he told her. What does it matter? We have nothing to hide. Not anymore. They already know everything, or think they do. I doubt there is much we can say to change their minds at this point. She rubbed her eyes and realized that despite her best intentions, she was pushing herself. She needed rest, and she needed to get back to the hospital soon before she collapsed. Yes, she could use her powers again to re-energize herself, but without sufficient rest, and in her weakened state, the temporary bursts of energy would lessen in strength and duration. Safin saw her failing. Lie down, Maurra. She looked up and gave him a quizzical look. Lie down, he repeated. The floor is warm. You can rest while I fill you in. She didn't question him. In fact, by stretching out on her side and using one arm as a pillow, Maurra found it to be quite comfortable. I vaguely remember you or someone saying the Kronners are dead. I know I didn't hit them that hard. Or did I? I know you blasted them so hard the walls of the hold lit up. My ears were ringing, and I was half blind when I grabbed you and ran from the cell. Bodies were everywhere. Some of them could have been dead. Maybe all of them were still alive, but I wasn't going to stop and check. Not when it could be our only chance to get out of there. Maurra nodded. From previous run-ins with the Kronners, I already had an idea where their shuttlecraft were located. By the time I got to the loading dock, one ship had already taken off. Valbrod? It had to be. I threw you into the closest pod and got us away from the ship as quickly as possible.